Octane is a company we started from scratch. And so when we began, it was my husband and me and one other partner. And so the structures that we've built there, we set into place. And if they've succeeded or failed, we are the only ones to blame for that, right? Because you know that this is entrepreneurialism. We're going to succeed or fail based on the merits of what we're doing. That is a very different experience at the city. This is a community that's been around a long time, and so we're building on systems and structures and policies that many people decades before us built. And so as we're doing strategic planning, we're not building that from scratch. We're taking what exists and we're optimizing it. We're making, 2-degree course corrections in some cases, which a 2-degree course correction today can take you really different path than what you're currently on. But figuring out how to do that well there and in a way that you don't have whiplash with your team, those 1,000 people that are fairly set in their ways in some things and they don't want to change the way they do it. And so we've had to optimize that and strategically change that carefully so that we keep everybody rowing in the same direction as much as possible.
I'm so glad to have you today. I started you are my fifth person on the podcast,
Mhm.
and when I first started it, I just thought, who did I want to have on the podcast? And I knew that my podcast was going to be specific to Midland, and or the Permian and oil and gas. And I said, well, what about the mayor? Who's the mayor? Lori Blong. Let's see if Lori Blong wants to come hang out with me.
Well, I love doing podcasts and I'm really thankful to have the opportunity to be here with you. So thanks so much for reaching out and inviting me.
Yeah. So Lori, I reached out to Lori too, and I said I have three daughters, and their mom is a nurse or retired nurse practitioner, professional, and now she owns the bookstore right down here called
Okay.
uh, Main Squeeze.
Mhm.
And so I was like, man, I wanted them to see, come and talk to you as well. But instead, I have some questions from my three daughters to you
Perfect.
about being the mayor.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So the first one they asked me to ask you is that, what does the mayor do every day? Ver-
This mayor, I'm also a mom of 3 kids. And so my day starts out. Actually, my day really starts out. I have the most gracious husband, and he brings me a latte in bed every morning. So I don't tell everybody that because I don't want to sound like I'm a kept woman, but it's true. He does a really good job. So he brings me a latte, and then my kids. I have one in college, and then 2 boys at home, and so normal everyday stuff that every family is doing. And then we have an oil and gas company, a production company, Octane Energy, and so I split time between working at Octane and then working on things for the city. So most of my time is spent either on the phone or in meetings face to face with people. I constantly have more emails than I can respond to and more text messages than I can respond to. And I do the best that I can on my communication, but there's just only so many hours in the day. So I work really, really hard every single day and go to those meetings, have those conversations, and then come home and cook dinner and go to my kids' sports or whatever they have. I have a lot of evenings, sometimes 2 to 3 evenings a week that are given to speaking engagements or attending different functions as mayor. But I still try really hard to be at my kids' functions also. So that's kind of what I do on a normal day.
You sound really busy.
I'm very busy for
Yeah.
sure.
On the mayor's side, what specific things do you have to tend to? I pictured,
Mhm.
this is gonna sound weird because I'm a weird guy. I wear wolf shirts.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
Is like you were like on a throne,
No
and
throne.
you have like Jim and Bob, they come and they're having a dispute over, them letting cattle on their land, and you have to be
Yeah.
you have to be the mediator in that. But is that you don't do that?
Not so much.
Not so
I
much.
do I am the mediator on various things in the
Okay.
community where we'll have neighborhood issues or development, zoning development issues, where we have two different parties that have very different perspectives on how something should go. And so one of our goals as city government and city council is that we get community members to settle those things between them. We do not want it to end up where they come to city council and we have to decide. And so it's our goal to have them meet together. They work it out. Sometimes I'm mediating that in a meeting, but in terms of official duties, we have a city council meeting twice a month, a regularly scheduled city council meeting twice a month. And we have a long agenda of things that we're making decisions on. So it's me and six other council members. And we get a packet, which is like all the information, the background information we need to know before we make decisions on usually 30-ish items. And so the packet is usually around the 1,000+ pages, 1,500 pages. And so we have to go through that all that information to make sure we're making prudent decisions for the community of Midland on all of those different issues. So there's a lot of that kind of work too.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah, I can't imagine 1,500 page documents. What, twice a month?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so there's the contracts and everything. Every single item that we get to vote on, the city staff gives us a memo. So it's like a summary of this is what the issue is, these are the details of it, and then the supporting documentation is also there. And so I'm not going to say I read every single word every single time, but all of that is there. And I do go deep. I take a deep dive in it and make sure that I understand the issues. Some of them are, the in-depth contracts where I'm trusting that the attorney has done the work and I've been engaged on the deal points of those contracts before it ever came to me for a decision. So I don't have to read that again because I've already read it for a previous thing. But a lot of it is a lot of in-depth information for sure.
yeah, that's great. So that's amazing. What made you want to become the mayor? Like, how did the inspiration come,
Yeah.
and how'd that happen?
So I was born and raised here in Midland, and I really love Midland and care about it. And my husband and I moved away actually before I ever knew my husband. Moved away for college in my early career. I was gone from Midland for about 11 years, and then we moved back and really got deeply involved in our church and in philanthropy around our community. Volunteered for various boards and other things, but it was really just work and church and community service at that point. And just through a pretty long series of events, really realized that there were things I was frustrated about in Midland. And I didn't want to be a person who griped and complained, but I was increasingly frustrated about some things. And so I decided I wrote some op-eds that the newspaper graciously published for me about some things that were problems that I saw. And then these were some things that I thought we could do to solve some of those problems as a community. It's like a series of articles. And people were reading those articles and I would get phone calls. Hey, I don't know who you are, but I want to meet with you and listen to a little bit more of what your plan is. None of that at that time. I didn't think politically. I just thought as a engaged citizen, I care about this community. We can do better. And so I started having some meetings, and then I started having people asking me to run for city council. But so at that point, it was city council. I was not running for the mayor. I was just running for District 4 city council seat. But I had no previous experience in politics of any kind. I had never worked on anyone else's campaign. I watched the news, and I was an informed voter and a faithful voter, but I never saw myself in that role, and so that was a pretty hard shift for me in 2019 to go from just loving and serving this community from a philanthropic perspective to deciding to put my name out there to run.
Yeah, cool. So did you run for city
Mhm.
council?
Yeah, so I did city council, ran in 2019. I was sworn in 2020, and I served one 3-year term as a city council member and then ran for mayor in 2022 and was sworn in 2023.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And what was it like running your campaign? And the reason why I ask is because, when we see these, the presidential campaign, it's very uh drama filled, I feel like.
Yeah.
Was yours drama filled, or were you just meeting people and talking about the change that you wanted to make?
There were some drama filled moments, I would
Okay.
say. I had to get schooled up quickly about how to even put a campaign together.
Hmm.
And it's big business for people that run campaigns for a living. There are political consultants who do nothing else besides run campaigns and advise political candidates. And so when I first got started, when people were coming to me in 2019 asking me to run, I didn't even know that there was a consultant. I didn't even know what that was. And so I had some of those folks that were asking me to run. I said, okay, well, you're going to have to help me because I don't even know how to do this. And so they made some introductions, and I interviewed several different political consultants to say, how do I do this? What I ended up hiring was a kind of a one-stop shop. So a group that did everything. They helped me get road signs and the signs that you put in your yards, and they helped me set up a social media account, and they helped me set up a website. They knew how to get all of the addresses that you need for voters so that you can send out mail, those mailers that you get, all of that kind of stuff. I needed somebody that knew how to do that. And so the first time I hired somebody that was a one stop shop, and I had to raise the money to pay them. So I got campaign contributions from the people that had been asking me to run and other friends to be able to pay that one stop shop. The second time when I ran for mayor, I knew a little bit more about what I was doing. And so instead, I hired a political consultant and then I outsourced some of those other things. So I did some of it myself and then I hired other people to do other components. So it wasn't a one stop shop this time. It was more of I kind of know who I am and what I'm about, how I'm going to do this. And I put it together a little differently the second time. So yeah, but it's a whole machine
Yeah.
to run a political campaign for sure.
Yeah. What do you think, that was the journey fun? Was it fun doing that campaigning?
It is
Or
one
was
of
or
the
was it
most
tiring?
It was exhausting. I think it's one of the most exhausting things I've ever done. Um, but I'm a very competitive person,
Mhm.
maybe sometimes to a fault, but I'm driven. And if I say I'm going to do something, I want to do it with excellence and I don't want to get beat.
Yeah.
And so, both times that I've campaigned, I've been motivated to block walk, which I believe is one of the most important parts of running a campaign. Just doing the work of getting out and talking to people, and a lot of people don't want to answer their doors. And you have more people that don't answer their doors or they're not home. So you actually end up speaking to a relatively few number of people, but the people that you do get to speak to, it's really impactful. And you would have no other access to those people unless you actually get out and do the work to block walk. And so in both of my campaigns, I got pretty fit because I walked so much. I lost weight and was in really good shape both times. And um but it is stressful and it's just tiring. There were so many different events and debates and things to go to and things to participate in the process. So it's fast and furious. It's really from August to November, and you get out there and you kill it. Beat the streets and try to get out there and meet as many people as you can. So it's fast and furious, and then you either win or you lose. And so far, I've been successful both times. So that's encouraging.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I can imagine, how many houses, or what do you say, how many houses do you think you went to?
Be able to rattle that off, but I can't. I don't.
Oh, did you
It
know
would
at
be.
the
I
time?
did. I did know. So there's an app that you can get that tracks that.
Mhm.
And the first time I ran, I didn't want to pay for that app because there's a big cost to getting it all set up. And so we got the data from the voter rolls, but I just got it all printed out, and then I made these notebooks, and I would go through and use that voter data, and I would block walk with these notebooks that kind of took me through the precincts for District 4. The second time I ran for mayor, it's a whole city. It's not just one district. And so when I ran for mayor, I thought I have to have the app because this is too big. It's too daunting. And this is a more sophisticated race. And so I did go ahead and buy the app and get all of that data loaded in there. And so then it's a GIS based map system. And so you can click on it and it tells you which ones to go to, but it prioritizes by super voter. And a super voter is a person who votes in primaries and every election. And they're more than a 90% voter in every single available election. And so the way that I set it up was I only wanted to knock on super voter doors.
Oh, so you know who they are.
So
Yeah, 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 you know who okay,
you don't know, what there's nothing that records who you vote for. I want to be clear about that.
oh,
That
okay.
that data
Okay.
is private and no one finds that
Sure.
out.
Yeah.
But you do find out if you vote in a Republican primary or if you vote in a Democrat primary.
Okay.
And then you also find out what other elections those people vote in. And so you're able to knock on the doors strategically for people that are the highest likelihood voters. So you don't, on any given block, in some parts of town, you might only knock on three doors because there's only three people that are really super voters. But in some part, there are other neighborhoods that have statistically higher voting turnout, and so you might knock on every single door. Um, and so with my race as District 4, those are some really highly voting precincts. And so I block walked a lot in that area. And then when I voted as or ran as mayor, I was able to prioritize the highest voting precincts and the highest voting neighborhoods, and I did those first. And then as I got those completed, then I went to the next tier. And I had people in both that would block walk with me. So I would block walk, this street, and then I had a team. We're all going to go together and get as many as we can in these 2 hours or whatever. So
Yeah,
kind of
that
fun.
that sounds super fun. Did you have any like so did you have any, the opposite end of the spectrum, like drama people that were super mean to you? And I mean, I'm
Um,
sure, if people like slam the door, I don't do that, but I've seen people slam the door on, the person who tries to come
mhm.
solicit things. But I mean, like someone actually was like, I hate your policies or something like that, said something.
I never had anybody that hated my policies.
Yeah.
I had one man that wanted to meet me for coffee. So I met him for coffee and had a broader discussion. And he wanted me to make some really hard stands on some other issues that really didn't relate to anything in the city of Midland or anything. So that one was kind of just a difficult thing to navigate. I did also have somebody that I've known for a long time. This is my hometown. So you think about knocking on random doors in these different neighborhoods, chances of me knowing these people is high. And I had a couple of them that I assumed for sure would be supporters, and only one case did I learn, okay, they're definitely not my supporter. And that was, that's just part of this. If you're
That's
gonna,
wild.
but somebody that you've known your whole life and come to find out they're not supportive of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would actually probably make me a little sad there if you're
You have to have
that.
very thick skin
Yeah.
if you're going to do this job. And I've had to learn not just in campaigning and in block walking, but in the issues that we're making decisions on,
Mhm.
where I'm sitting on the dais with these other six people and we have to make a decision. I have to vote. And I'm going to have people that agree with me and people that disagree with me. And some of them are unkind when they disagree. And so, figuring out how to navigate that with graciousness has been a really high priority for me, for sure.
Yeah, I assume that's hard.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, we to control your responses, even myself, it's,
Mhm.
to control your response, even when someone's being extremely disrespectful
Yeah.
is very difficult,
Yeah.
and not to get your own emotions
Mhm.
like involved in that. Have you stumbled there,
I
or do you keep your composure?
I don't think I've really lost my composure.
Hmm.
One of the things to get a little more personal about this,
Hmm.
one of the things that's really been a priority for me is to not behave in such a way that I embarrass myself or my family or embarrass the name of Jesus. I want to act in such a way that I can hold my head high and say, maybe I made a mistake in a decision that I made or a vote that I made, but was I unkind? Was I mean? Was I ugly? In a way that I'm then embarrassed about. And so that's something that's truly a regular prayer for me. Walking into what I know is going to be a difficult situation, I I want to make sure that I uphold the values that I espouse. And I I can't think of a time where I've really embarrassed myself in that way. And I hope that that's something I can continue to say. It's really important to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I commend you for that because I don't think that I would be able to like say I'm 10 for 10 for keeping my composure.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
I'm
So
not saying 10 for 10, but there was one time where in the firefighter pension fund has been
Uh-huh.
a difficult issue that I've had to deal with in my
Okay.
time as mayor. And they are very impassioned speakers, some of those firefighters, when they would come and make public comment. And there was one time where this guy was coming at us, and previous to that, they had only been talking in what was a public comment period where we weren't legally allowed to respond to them. So they could say whatever they wanted and we couldn't respond. Well, this particular time, they were making public comment where we had an action item. So I legally could ask questions and push back. And there was one time where I said, "Well, I'm going to challenge what you're saying there because that's not correct." And I did. And he's like, "We're not here to debate." I said, "Yes, sir, we are here to
Mm.
debate. We are going to talk about this." So I'm not going to say that I'm a pushover, but there he was saying something that was incorrect, and I wanted to be able to challenge that. So, I you know. I can't say that I'm 10 out of
Yeah.
10, but it is definitely a priority. It's something that is really a huge motivating factor for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great. Well, I mean, that sounds like you were probably made for politics then if you could keep your cool under pressure
Thank you.
and fight the good fight there for us. Uh, what about so you own a oil and gas production company,
Mhm.
Octane?
We do.
Which one do you like better? Which one do you like doing better?
Oh, they're so
Running a
different. They're so different. I think I really like people,
Mhm.
and I like the components of Octane and employing people and working with people to do better, to optimize our
Yeah.
systems and optimize our production and optimize our deal flow, and employing those people and making sure that they're resourced to do their jobs well. And that's really a lot of what I do as mayor as well with the city staff. We have over 1,000 people that work at the city, and I primarily work with the five. Council appointees, so the city manager, the city secretary, the city attorney, and the two municipal judges. And the majority of my engagement is probably with the city manager, the city attorney, and the city secretary. And then downline from them, there's over 1,000 people. And so they're implementing the policies that council is enacting, and we're working with them through strategic planning, through day to day engagement to make sure that that's going well. So my roles are certainly different and the jobs are different, but a lot of what I do is similar in resourcing people to do their job well.
Yeah, and try to be more efficient.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, I employ 10 people right
Hmm.
now. And so it's a little easier because I know them all firsthand
Hmm.
and that's efficient in its own way.
Hmm.
And so I haven't got to the point to where like, you have to figure out how to go 1,000 people down. I mean,
Yeah.
that seems like a lot to have to, the movement there's a
Right.
lot of movement there. Yeah.
The difference, a key difference is Octane is a company we started from scratch. And so when we began, it was my husband and me and one other partner. And so the structures that we've built there, we set into place. And if they've succeeded or failed, we are the only ones to blame for that, right? Because you know that this is entrepreneurialism. We're going to succeed or fail based on the merits of what we're doing. That is a very different experience at the city. This is a community that's been around a long time, and so we're building on systems and structures and policies that many people decades before us built. And so as we're doing strategic planning, we're not building that from scratch. We're taking what exists and we're optimizing it. We're making, 2-degree course corrections in some cases, which a 2-degree course correction today can take you really different path than what you're currently on. But figuring out how to do that well there and in a way that you don't have whiplash with your team, those 1,000 people that are fairly set in their ways in some things, and they don't want to change the way they do it. And so we've had to optimize that and strategically change that carefully so that we keep everybody rowing in the same direction as much as possible.
Yeah, I've never heard it that way. Of like, yeah, we've had Midland's been a city for this, and they've had these policies. I don't know how long, but I
Mhm,
know what 100 plus
mhm.
years, and uh, they've made we have all these rules that
Yeah,
the city has, and you have the state, and you have to make, and then so you're just constantly optimizing the same thing to try to. And if
yeah,
you probably can't veer. Yeah, you can't veer too far.
yeah,
It gives everybody a headache. So
yeah,
you just have to like kind of steer a little bit one way.
absolutely. And if you look at when I started in 2020
Mhm.
and then where we are today in 2025, we've made pretty sweeping changes to some things. I think that there are a lot of Midlanders who would say, yeah, Midland's a different place in some ways. Some ways it's very, very much the same, but there are things that we've really changed. We've really made a lot of changes to code enforcement, even law enforcement. We've had a 10% over a 10% drop in violent crime just in the last year because of some of our policing strategies that we've implemented. And I don't take credit for that, but it is something that I've led and pushed for, and I'm so thankful for our police department that have led those changes. We've made huge changes to our permitting and to our inspections department for building and construction and development. So there's all of these really big changes that have taken place, but they were things that were in many cases the result of a lot of work that was slow and steady and intentional in the front end that seemed like they were not making any impact, and now we're seeing benefit from them because we've been faithful to pursue that change.
Yeah, it takes a while to get
Yeah.
it. It takes it a little bit to get the ball rolling on
Yeah.
them. And what's the one you're most proud of?
I'm very proud of the reduction in the violent
Well,
crime
yeah,
rate.
right.
I think that every Midlander should celebrate the fact that we've had more than a 10% reduction. I'm really proud of some of what we've done with just development around town and I can't take credit for all of these things, but Costco is something that I've worked on the entire time I've been on city council.
Oh, have you? Yeah,
And so
yeah.
super excited to see that coming to Midland. And they've, are fully under construction and moving towards a very aggressive timeline. And this stuff that's happening with the zoo and the Midland Athletic Syndicate, those are private projects, but I'm thankful to be friends with the people that are bringing those private projects, and the city is trying to do what we can to optimize that for them. So there's a lot of exciting things in Midland. I think if I had to just kind of boil it down to what I'm proud about of my time so far, it's really the increase in pride of place that we're beginning to have about Midland.
Mm.
That there's a building esteem for what we're doing, and the Christmas Midland Merry Lights was a byproduct of that. Aren't we so proud to all be here? Hundreds of people downtown in the park every evening in the month of December,
Uh,
businesses, restaurants that had 35% increase in revenue in the month of December because of that. That was the only change.
yeah,
And so those are huge impacts that we've had, and our pride of place is growing
right.
because of it.
Yeah, and I was there. I was
Yeah.
there for it, and that 35%. Again, we're right here at Main Squeeze.
Yeah.
That we were there, and we got to see all of the people walking, and the revenue went up
That's great.
because it was there. So there's the
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
That's what we want. And we want more programming downtown and other places.
Mhm.
Sports tourism is such a huge part of
Yeah.
the world we live in, and we're beginning to attract more of that regionally. We're building 62 new soccer fields at Beale Park, and we've already got that project in motion, and that's going to be a partnership between the city and some local philanthropy that are joining together to pay for those improvements. But we know those are real dollars that come back to our community when we have these different sports tourism opportunities where you host a tournament, and everybody from the surrounding areas, they spend the night in our community and they pay hotel motel tax and they eat dinner in our restaurants and they go to our stores. All of that is revenue from outside of Midland that comes into our community, and it begins to supercharge our revenue streams without it impacting homeowners and property taxes. And so we just feel like a lot of those things are headed in the right direction, and we want to do what we can to be the shot in the arm to keep those things going.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited about that because 3 of my 4 kids play soccer. I coach
Yeah.
my son's competitive soccer team, and I saw how well, they practice at Villa Park right now,
Yeah.
and
And it's probably not an optimal
no,
experience.
I mean, yeah. So, yeah, because what I was going to tell you is that I've spent many dollars in Dallas
Yeah.
and playing at and using their hotels and
Yeah.
using their facilities, and they are super nice there. And it was like, man, when I heard that, I'm like, that's awesome
Yeah.
that we're gonna get one of those because
Absolutely.
well, for one, I grew up here too. I went to Miller
Mhm.
High, and I played football,
Mhm.
and we all love football in Midland. That's not
Yeah.
gonna go away.
Yeah.
And I was never a soccer fan myself until I started having kids and we put them in soccer, and now I've become a soccer fan. So
Yeah.
now I see that, yeah. So now when I see that we're having soccer, the Costco, the zoo, and you said you grew up in Midland. I would say the stigma about
Mhm.
Midland growing up was that there's nothing to do here. We're all here because the oil field,
Right.
which I think maybe was a little, there wasn't much to do.
Yeah,
But
we weren't wrong
yeah, we were,
when we
yeah,
said that. It was true.
and now you're seeing the downtown, and you're talking zoo, Costco, the center. I saw the article today on Synergy.
Mhm. Yeah, there's so much
Um,
revitalization of buildings that there's some of that's just a natural churn, but we have a lot of great things going for us right
mhm,
now, and we've enjoyed a pretty extended time of oil and gas prosperity, and we certainly, those of us that have been here for several decades, know what the boom and bust cycles feel like, and the impact that they have. But some of those things, if we really look at population data alone,
mhm,
so take the booms and bust cycles and the economics out of it, just who has lived here. We've had steady population growth since the 80s, even through some of those down cycles in the commodities. commodity prices. And so people don't leave Midland just because there's a commodity slump, price slump. And so what we're trying to do here as city council is say, how do we make this a place that people want to be? Commodity prices be danged. We're going to make Midland the best place that it can be for everybody that's here, because we know that this is our home.
Mhm.
This is not an extraction colony for oil and gas for people to just take our resources out of here and go somewhere else. This is where we live, and we want to make this the best place that it can be.
I think everyone that would watch this, and even myself, would be glad to hear it. Like, the people that are from here, like, yeah, that we're so glad to hear that, because that's what I think that was a stigma growing up, and now you're seeing it unfold like a zoo and all the
Yeah.
things, and so that's really exciting. It's really exciting. On to what's the goal for this year? For
We are onward and upward. The strategic planning session we actually have been hosting, and working on some of that today, is really to dial in the strategic plan that we put in place in October of 2023. So we were wrapped up a year of having this strategic plan in place. And so what we had was the ability to listen to staff members, report back to council, okay, we took your strategic plan, we've implemented it, and these are the outcomes. And so they've been able to talk to us about things that we asked for. Hey, we got these things done. These things are still in process, and then we still have to work on this stuff. And we were able to talk through and say, what are some other things we want to add to those strategic goals? How do we want to tweak this and dial it in just a little bit? We didn't revamp it. It's a 5-year strategic plan, and we're committed to it. But we dialed it in just a little bit to be able to say, how are we going to act in such a way with the economy and the way that we engage with strong job markets, the way that we handle our fiscal management and our governance as a city, the way that we're handling our infrastructure, the way that we're handling becoming a safe and secure city with police and fire and other opportunities, all of these different goals. How are we making all of those things work together so that Midland is a place that we're proud of, where our
Mm,
kids want to move back someday? And so that is the plan. It's the same plan we
it
had
is.
last year. We've just dialed it in a
Okay.
little tighter, and you're going to see for Midland Mary Lights, for instance, we're going to extend that to 6 weeks instead of 4.
Oh, cool.
And so there will be opportunities even before Thanksgiving for families to be downtown and enjoy the festivities. We're going to add probably some food truck opportunities. We're also going to have a hot chocolate stand that is going to be really cool looking. And so several other things that we're going to add to that. That this was just the first year, and it was a huge
Yeah.
success. So we look forward to dialing that in a little bit more next year too, or this year too.
Yeah. Now, yeah, on the you talked about commodity prices, and from what I've seen over the years is, and I think the operators do try to, like yourself too, that people are trying to get it to be more stable and not
Mhm.
up and down, because it's a big problem when we have big swings.
Yeah. I think there's
Do you think, well, my question is, do you think that it is starting to be gonna be more like people are trying to figure out how to be less plateauy, and, and
yeah.
kind of stay in a middle range there?
I think that commodity prices will continue to swing the way that we've seen.
Oh, really? You
I
think really?
think I think we'll have booms and busts in the same way. I think that they'll be faster. If you think back to the 80s and 90s, some of those troughs were really, really long.
Mhm.
And I think the cycle swing is going to be a little faster and hopefully not quite as violent as it has been for my lifetime. But the thing that I think is the biggest change is not what commodity prices may or may not do. I think the biggest change is the fiscal discipline that oil and gas
Mm.
companies are enacting. And that shaves off it shaves off the highest highs.
Yeah, uh-huh.
You're not going to have,
The
double
big
the number of rigs running when you see commodity prices really high. And so your production will incrementally increase, but it's not going to spike the way we used to see it. But consequently, you're going to shave off some of the lowest lows because you've not overexposed yourself to the risk with having overspent in the highs. And so I think that fiscal discipline is the thing that has been needed in the industry and has been needed in our community, to say, how do we discipline ourselves to spend this money wisely and don't get too fired up or too depressed when things change. We're going to keep it slow and steady, and we're going to win the race. But we know that the Permian is, half of North American oil production. And so we have to, as goes the Permian, I believe so goes the United States in many regards. We are critical to national security. We're critical to the nation's ability to continue business as we know it. And so we need that steadiness and that consistency and dependability from the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And correct me if I'm wrong, if you being the mayor, your coffers, your treasury isn't bouncing in the same way too. So I would assume they would be more stable to put like more long-term initiatives in a way. Am I wrong about that? But
Well,
like if you're not seeing a swing in your what you're taking in, or um like I know that whenever COVID came and they raised asset prices, then your taxes are going to get raised a lot, and
yeah.
you would have to. I mean, I don't know. I don't run the taxes, but you'd have to keep adjusting a
You
lot.
do.
You'd have to keep adjusting your tax rate, and making a bunch of
So
changes.
there's three main revenue streams, and I think of it like a three legs on a stool. So you have your property taxes, your ad valorem taxes. So for your home, that's the property taxes that you pay, maybe in your mortgage, or maybe pay them separately. Then for oil and gas, that's the ad val taxes that are charged to the oil and gas company. And those things change some, but they don't change as wildly as commodity prices. And then we have sales tax. Sales tax swings violently with
Yeah, it
commodity
does.
prices because you think about how many tubulars you're selling when people are running more rigs versus how many tubulars you're not selling when things are shut in. And so some of those things that really drive the record sales taxes that we receive are really oil field sales tax. The consumer sales tax in Midland, it swings a little bit with commodity prices, but not a lot. And so those are two legs on the stool. The third leg on the stool are the franchise fees that we receive and other fees that the city receives. But franchise fees are what think about the electrical companies and the internet companies, all of those that are running through the city's right of way to service this community. They're paying franchise fees to us for the right of way access. And so those are contractually negotiated rates. And so those three legs on the stool really keep things going for our general fund. But interestingly, in the city of Midland, we collect less ad valorem taxes, total property taxes, than it costs just to run police and fire alone. So think about everything else: water, sewer, trash pickup, parks, road maintenance, all of the other functions of the city, and there are many,
Mhm.
like those have to be paid for out of sales tax and franchise fees because it costs more than our total property tax collection just to pay for police and fire.
Holy
Yeah.
smokes!
So
So
that's
what
the
happens
burden
whenever we're at the bottom? Like, how do you?
we
Well, I
have to
mean, I'm
make
thinking
adjustments.
about it. You were what you were in 2021. I mean, oh, so you started in 19. So you were city council. You kind of seen the COVID thing. Was that
Yeah. Oh, I was
everybody?
there when oil went negative
Yeah,
and all of the
yeah. I
consequences of
mean, I
that.
guess for me, I was 2 years into my business,
Yeah.
and watching my equipment come back,
Mhm.
and going, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm 2 years in. I think I'm gonna be
Yeah.
slaughtered. I couldn't imagine, like, if you're in city council, and
Yes.
were
No,
you guys thinking the same thing?
I was on city council, and then our business, we started as a well site consulting firm. So we had company men out on well locations, and we had 140 guys in the field 1099 in 2019, 2018, 2019, 140 guys that we were running. 2 weeks after oil went negative, only 14 of those guys still had jobs. And you were there, like
Yeah.
you know what that felt like. We had to make a pivot. Just the general liability and professional liability coverage that we were carrying insurance on those 140 consultants when you've only got 14 of them that are still at work. You can't cover your GLPL policy and the premiums for that. And so we had to decide, what are we going to do here? And we ended up selling our book of business to a competitor. And so I was navigating city council and everybody that's mad at me about, are we going
Yeah,
to have a
yeah,
mask mandate? Are we not going to have a mask mandate? Are we going to shut businesses down? Are we going to send kids home? You know, all of that is swirling around me as a city council person, and my business is failing. And all of the marital impact of that, you know, because we're in business together, he and I. And so navigating all of that and caring for three kids and the pressures of all of it. Yeah, we felt it on all sides. And I would say, you know, back to your original question about the city economics and the how we manage those revenues, we had to pull back on some things. There were some capital projects that we had to push pause on, and we had to say we're going to have to figure out how we're going to handle that. The city of Midland has always prioritized a pretty strong fund balance. So we keep about 120 to 180 days of cash in the bank
mhm.
because we want to make sure that we're planning ahead for a
Yeah.
commodity slump. A lot of communities, their best goal is 90 days of cash in the bank, and Midland has always done 120 to 180. And so we came into COVID in a strong financial position with a AAA bond rating and cash in the bank. So we were able to weather some of that, but we still had to hit pause on some capital improvement projects. Today, we still have that really strong fund balance. We still enjoy a AAA bond rating on most of them. We have Moody's, we have a AA plus, but the others we have AAA. And so we're doing what we can to manage our cash, to manage our finances in such a way that were we to come up against something like that again, another black swan event, Midland can adjust some things and weather those things with integrity and confidence.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all and to relate to you, I'm 2 years into business. My wife is about to graduate her nurse practitioner school, so she is not working. I have 4 kids, and they're all being, supported by jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And in a 2 weeks' time, half my revenue was cut in half
Hmm.
in about 2 weeks, and I was under an extreme amount of pressure, and
Hmm.
I remember working a lot
Yeah.
to make sure, just working very hard. And then, which was, God's timing is impeccable, I think, sometimes because about 2 months later, a month and a half later, my wife was graduating.
That's great.
And so there was a few months, about 2 or 3 months, I couldn't take a paycheck anymore, or we
Hmm.
weren't going to make it.
Yeah.
And so it was just like 2 or 3 months there. And then I kind of got it, gained some ground back,
Yeah.
and everything was good after that. But yeah, that was, I can definitely relate to, you had 3 different things,
Yeah.
of just everybody, because yeah, everyone's all mad about masks, and
Yeah.
then your business is getting slaughtered. You're
Yeah.
going, man.
Yeah. And thankfully, Jared he's a strong leader, and
Mhm.
our family weathered through that. But I'm not going to say it wasn't hard. It was hard. And I'm thankful that I had a good partner in business and in my family to be able to do that and to lead us through that in
Yeah,
many ways. But I do think that I've heard this before, and I don't even know who to attribute it to originally, but in oil and gas in the Permian, if you can keep your name in the phone book through some of those downturns, that is really the way that you demonstrate that you've got what it takes to go the long haul. And so congratulations,
yeah,
you kept your name in the
yeah.
phone book, and so did we.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
right, you
good.
made it, we're
Yeah,
both here,
that's right.
yeah. Actually, yeah, no, yeah, I bet, I wish to meet your husband one day, because I'm sure, the people who went, because I watched, and I don't think that they were bad people, but I've watched a lot of people fall off that.
Hmm.
And I can't blame them either, because I think that, I could have probably, like, hit pause
Yeah.
just for 6 months instead of
Hmm.
trying to weather it.
Hmm.
I kind of think back, like, maybe I should have just stopped
Yeah.
for 6 months there
Hmm.
and came back to it. But yeah, no, it was a fun. I mean, you say you're competitive, and so I guess that was kind of like it. It's like, oh, I don't care what's gonna happen. I'm gonna try to
Yeah. We're
to
going to keep after it. And
keep
losing
after it.
is not an option.
Yeah,
Pivoting and changing, absolutely an option.
yeah,
But losing, giving up, quitting is not an option. So.
yeah. That's super cool. And what's I don't know much about social Octane.
Mhm.
And is this a oil and gas? How many wells do you guys have?
So we are right now, we're kind of
Or
in a
can you say that?
transition.
I don't,
I couldn't actually give you the number right
oh,
now.
okay.
So now I'm not hiding something. I just
Okay.
don't actually know right now. We have the life cycle of our business, we went from well site consulting and then we sold that to a competitor, sold really just our MSAs to a competitor. And we decided to pivot into operations. And so I hired an operations engineer, a reservoir engineer to help me vet deals. And Jared took 2 years away from our company and went and worked for another group and helped them to optimize what they were doing. And I stayed with Octane with this reservoir engineer and we vetted deals and we made offers and we finally got a deal closed about a year later. And so Jared was really doing what it took to support our family so that I could go and buy an asset to be able to produce that. So we did. And then we operated that for the last several years. And we recently sold it last semester. And so that was a big success story as well to be able to buy that and optimize it and then sell it.
Yeah.
And then we, in the middle of all of that, we also bought a contract operating firm here in town, and so now we are back a little bit into some well site consulting, mostly just on projects that we're co-invested in. And then we have our operations of our own, the things that we own and that we're producing. And then we have this contract operating piece where we're operating other people's assets for them. So
Yeah.
those are
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
three
Yeah.
business models and they really hold hands. It functions as one unit, but they're three separate entities. So yeah,
It's fun.
it is. Yeah. We
Um,
don't get bored at our
do
house.
you what do you do? What do you manage on there? Like
So for the time period that he was out doing something else, I was CEO and president and leading everything and, chief bottle washer, I guess, as
cheap
they
butter,
say.
yeah.
But
Wearing all the hats
that's
and
right. But then when he came back in, thankfully, and was able to take a lot of that over, now we're just say that we're co-founders and partners. But he really manages a lot of the operations, and then most of my focus has been in finance and in corporate management, administration, and all of those things, making sure that all of our operations folks have what they need to be successful. I'll be honest though, since I've been mayor, I do not pull my full weight like I
at all.
used to.
No.
And so he steps in and there's a lot of places where we overlap and he's covering for me in Octane because I'm so committed with my time to our family and to the city of Midland.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wouldn't bet I now in my business do mostly operations because I find I still mechanic and work on my machines
Mhm,
because don't get me into I hired the financial firm, the office people doing all the
mhm,
paperwork. I don't like that. I have to be
mhm.
outside and
Yeah.
working or I'm not very happy.
Yeah.
So I understand wanting to be inside the operations and operating a
Yeah.
business rather than you know, working on all the
The back
the
office.
back office stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I want to get back to another question because it just came to my mind. It's my youngest daughter, she's 10.
Hmm.
Well, she'll turn 11 in a few days, but she said, "Is the mayor rich?"
No,
So
the mayor gets paid $75 a month
$75 a month. So
before taxes.
she's gonna see this. Oh, it's gonna be great.
Before
Yeah.
taxes. So after taxes, it's like 69.23 or whatever
Uh-huh.
they take out. And so the city council person makes $25 a month before taxes. And so it's
So
a truly volunteer position. And pretty much all of us, we end up contributing, donating those dollars back somewhere else. So it is truly, sincerely 100% a volunteer job. It's out of love for this community and a desire to give back. And it's not something you can do forever, but it is something that I can do for the season and I feel called to it. And so don't do it for the money
yeah.
because you're not going to get rich doing this.
So yeah, Kennedy, she's rich. Okay.
$75 a month
$75 a
that
month.
I give away.
Cool. So what's yeah, politics. Do you want to push further?
Right now, I am fully committed to Midland and I'm excited to be able to serve here and, honestly have more than I can say grace over right now with the job. And I'm so proud of the work that we've done, that we are doing. And I want to see some of this strategic plan. I want to see it play out and I want to see the impact that it can really have for our community. I think we've changed the game in Midland over the last few years. And I want to make sure that that is sticks and it's here to stay.
Oh, I believe it. I can see it. People can see it. We can see Midland turning into something that we all
Are proud
are
of. That's
proud
what
of.
I'm going
Yeah,
for.
we're all proud of Midland. Even though I was never, that's the thing is I I would never like beat up on Midland because it's flat and I can't you can't knock something that supports your life either. I never liked that idea that people would say, but I do understand you're like, man, I want to go do
Yeah.
something too.
I like trees and grass as much as the
Yeah.
next person does, and I'm always happy to get to the mountains or to the lake and to enjoy some of those places. But Midland is it's really about the community spirit and about the way that we care for one another and the way that we serve one another out here. And the job that we're doing in oil and gas matters to the world,
Mhm.
and we need to be proud of that. There oil and gas is a service to the people. We're providing affordable, reliable energy that the world needs, and we need to wear that as a badge of honor.
A badge of honor.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna end with that, Miss Mayor Blong.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I
Uh,
really enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks.